The Battle of Tundibi. The Songhai Empire was at the height of its power, stretching all the way from Gambia and the West African coast to modern day Niger. However, their long lived Askia, or King Daoud, died in 1582, leading to disputes over control of the empire. Meanwhile, to the north, Morocco had successfully kicked out Portugal in their attempt to conquer Morocco. And, making a ransom for Portuguese captives, Morocco was swimming in cash and had a new ruler, Ahmad al Mansur. He was instrumental in revitalizing Morocco's army, palace, and even some spy services, really bringing Morocco to the forefront of the Renaissance period. But all of this was expensive, and Morocco was broke. But our friend had an idea. To the south, there was an empire that was bustling with activity and innovation. That's not what Al Mansur saw. He thought across the desert was a land with gold just flowing out of the ground through its mines, tons of it. Now, the Songhai were rich due to owning the gold and salt trade routes and control over the trans Saharan trade routes. Despite the fact that most of his advisors disagreed with the decision, he still ignored them, dispatching his general and a friend, Judar Pasha, with an expeditionary force to manage the campaign. And our boy Judar had quite the task ahead of him, leaving Marrakesh, or some sources say Sijil Massa, with 2,500 arquebusiers, 1,500 light cavalry, 500 assorted infantry with swords, lances, and bows, and 8 Turkish cannons, some sources say English. He also left with 8,000 camels, 1,000 horses, 1,000 stablemen, and 600 laborers. And Judar would move his band throughout the hot Sahara too. He would travel over 500 miles, making it in under 4 months. I would say Judar had some balls, but he didn't. Going to Tazgahat, he raised the Salmanzar under Songhai control, and he would continue his march all the way down to the fields of Tundibi, which was a cattle pasture right outside Gao. He would meet the Songhai army in the field. On the 13th of May, 1591, Judar came across the armies of the Askia. He shocked the second and deployed for battle. On Judar's flanks were the light cavalry. Moving towards the center, you had the cannons, the arquebusiers, and in the center, mixed infantry. On the side of Ishak II, you had 9,700 infantry, 12,500 cavalry, an unknown number of rearguard units, and on the flanks, 1,000 cattle, which had no symbol, so that's what I came up with. The battle started with them moving into the center, opposing the Moroccan infantry, and stampeding them in an attempt to break their lines. They were met with gunpowder weapons, which turned them around and caused them to crash into their own lines. With the Songhai cattle devastating their own lines, the Moroccans were free to launch volley after volley of cannon fire into the Songhai army, wreaking devastating damage. However, through all this, the Songhai infantry were able to regroup and charge at the Moroccan infantry, though due to not having gunpowder weapons, they were swiftly taken out of the battlefield and killed. The Songhai cavalry, on the other hand, had an overwhelming numerical advantage, putting up a much stronger fight in an initial skirmish. However, Judar Pasha was able to maneuver his cannons and arquebusiers into a position where they could use that technological advantage to shoot down the enemy. Those who could not flee were killed, and those who could flee fled. At last, it was only the Songhai rear guard, an elite band of men, that went toe-to-toe with the mixed infantry of the Moroccans, and though they put up a valiant fight, they eventually fell. At the end of the battle, Judar was able to go on to take Gao, though its residents had already evacuated, hearing about the devastating loss at Tundibi. But finding little in the way of riches, he moved on to also take Timbuktu and take its city as well. Jenne also surrendered. All in all, Judar captured Gao, Timbuktu, and Djenné, and established a form of tribute. Even after these successes, however, there was a thriving guerrilla campaign against the Moroccans, and that, along with the spoils, would have Judar demoted to second in command and replaced by Pasha Mahmud ibn Zarkun, who would prove to be trash. Our boy, Al Mansur, vision of capturing the gold mines for Moroccan future domination wouldn't pan out, as he would die from the plague in 1603, and his sons' successors would divide the empire in something known as the Succession War. Can you believe they made a Civ 5 character for this guy? I mean, at least he was anti-smoking, I guess. As a guy who smokes on occasions, meh. Anyways, the invasion of Songhai would create an entity called the Pashalik of Timbuktu. As for the Songhai, though, their power was greatly diminished, of course, retreating to their last surviving province of Dendi, making the Dendi Kingdom. However, Morocco would prove to be unable to assert control over such a long distance, causing the area to splinter into small kingdoms and cease tribute payments. I'll talk about the time period after the fall of the Songhai and Mali's attempt to reforge their dead empire, but that's a story for another time. Thanks for watching.